and welcome to a very special video because I never make videos about movies on this channel. So this is a channel where I make videos about life lessons in Bon Jovi songs. But now a movie came up and I had a take on it, and I thought, 10, 20 years from now, this is going to they're going to be YouTubers who say, oh, the movie Babygirl from 2024, did you know that it had this really cool ending? And I just want to call dibs on it. I just want to say, hey, January 2025, and I could already see this ending. So it's just me kind of wanting to call dibs on having seen this kind of layer to this movie. But also maybe if you're watching this and if you found this, give you a very interesting perspective on this movie, so that in 2045, when everybody will have this take on this movie, you can say, oh yeah, I already knew that in 2025. That's nothing new for me. So movie Babygirl was released in December 2024 in America and in January 2025 in the Netherlands, and I assume Europe. And it is directed by a Dutch director. So for all of you struggling how to pronounce her name, technically it's not Halina Reijn, although a lot of YouTubers say that, and I'm like, everybody in the Netherlands will let it pass. Okay, it's Halina Reijn, but technically that's not the name. It's also not Halina Rajin, which is kind of like a Indian name to pronounce it in that way. But it's not Halina Rajin. It's also not Halina Reijn. It is Halina Rhine. So Rhine. I have no idea how much trouble that's going to give you to pronounce that. But if you want to be like the only international channel who pronounces her name correctly, I'll do it one more time. Halina Reijn. Okay, that was it. Okay, so Halina Reijn made the movie, and she also wrote the script. So if we're ever going to get a final take on if she deliberately put this in the movie, yes or no, it's going to come from her, because she's both the director as well as the writer of the script. So and just let me say that I think she did a fantastic job. I don't think it's an ideal movie, but I think that considering what she went for, which is a movie for a broad audience, released in, December 2024, January 2025, this is a movie that, none of us get really what we want. So just to give you some context, in the 90s, it was very and this I'm gonna spoil the whole movie, spoil the whole ending, and I'm also going to spoil Fight Club's ending. It's a movie from 1999. So here's your spoiler spoiler warning. So so in the 90s, all the movies that dealt with women who were sexually active, it always ended badly, or 9 out of 10, it ended really badly. So she really wanted to give a more nuanced story, kind of she didn't want it to be punished, or that the main character has an affair. So if you come at it from that point, she didn't want it to be, she didn't want the main character to be punished. But I also think that if you want to have a movie for a broad audience, that the world in January 2025 is not ready for the woman actually like going through like a sexual hero's journey. So hero's journey is where you kind of like get a calling, face your fears, really go through the fires of some kind of experience, some kind of adventure, something that will shape you and your destiny forever, and then you come out on the other end like reborn. And so if you take the movie Lord of the Rings, there's a fellowship of 9 people. Some are hobbits, some are elves, some are humans. There's a wizard. For most of them, it's very clear how they went on a hero's journey. So Sam the Hobbit comes home being completely different. He will be the mayor of Bree, of the other hobbits, later on in his life, because he has really kind of like stepped into his power in this journey. Aragorn, the human, steps into his role as being the king. He steps into his leadership, and so there's everybody really comes home different, or really goes through their hero's journey. Doesn't necessarily mean that they all survive or that they all thrive in the way that we would want them to. For example, Frodo goes to leaves the shores and goes with the elves and go live there, because he has been kind of like harmed by the adventures, like on a really deeply spiritual level, that he can only heal or thrive again if he starts living in the realm of the elves. So hero's journey can be many things. It's not necessarily a happily ever after, but it is a full transformation. So if the movie Babygirl had had a full hero's journey, she would have come out on the other side, not just in her power, in that the sense that she could, you know, say to her colleague, which is one of the final scenes, say to her colleague that she will not be blackmailed, but also full in her sexual power, that we would see her kind of like, yeah, managing her sexual likes and dislikes, and owning what she wants between the sheets. And that is kind of like not really the ending either. You know, she stays with her husband, and it's kind of like, it's not a satisfactory ending for the people who were really looking for a hero's journey. But it's also still a palpable ending for people who were like, I don't know, probably rather have her punished, or that there be consequences to her behavior or whatever. So I think that the movie does a great job at taking this topic of a woman kind of like seeking sexual, well, not liberation, but like growth, or like what's her minimal requirement for having sex the way she wants to. Like what's her standard, a minimum standard that she needs. Halina Rhine really took on this subject and made a movie that didn't really trigger anyone in the audience to kind of like 100% dislike it. Like it was kind of like the middle ground. It ended on kind of like the middle ground, so that we would all be like a little bit disappointed, but we also all got a little bit of what we wanted. So no critique on the movie from me, but I did see a scene where I thought, wait a minute, this changes the entire movie. If we take this scene from the final minutes of the movie, if we take this scene seriously, then it has implications for the whole movie. And maybe she even did that deliberately, so that it would kind of like get seen kind of like at first glance in this era where we live now, and leave the unpacking of the full story for decades to come. So the scene I am talking about is a scene where we see Samuel, which was the younger lover. We see him with a dog from the opening scene of the movie, so they're meet cute. So there's a meet cute at the pavement. So meet cute means that the two main characters meet each other. So there's her, there's him, and there's a rabbit dog walking around and biting people, and she's afraid of the dog, and then he kind of like calms the dog down, and that's the first time that she notices him. So in the final scene, or one of the final scenes, we see this kind of like montage, slow-mo scene of him in a hotel room where they had met already, or not already, where they had previously met. So the female character and him had met previously in that hotel room, and there's a dog from the opening scene. I mean, I cannot like pinpoint, identify dogs, but it had the same height, the same color, and the same brown in his paws. So I'm just going to assume that it's the same dog. So the only way that we can interpret, so if we want to interpret this movie as she stays with her husband and her young lover has been transferred to Japan, if that's how we want to see the movie, which is kind of like how it goes down now, I mean, it's the only version that I've read and heard about, people assume that's the ending. The only way you can conclude that that is the ending is if you kind of like dismiss this whole scene. Why? Because this scene can only fit with that ending if this scene is something that is inside her head. So it's kind of like her constructed memory or constructed fantasy of what has happened, or of Samuel. So maybe it's an erotic fantasy that she thinks about when she's having sex with her husband. Maybe it's just a memory that she's created from all the different parts, like the hotel room, the lover, the dog from their meet cute. It's kind of like her collage, her like mental collage of her way to cherish that memory or remember it. So that's the only way that you can see the scene if you want to buy into the ending of, oh, she's just with her husband and her lover has moved out of the country. But that ending of us looking into her mind, her fantasy, doesn't make sense. It doesn't match up to the rest of the movie, because throughout the movie we only see reality, or we see her childhood memories. So we don't see any flashes of recent memories. We only see flashes of childhood memories, and we see reality. We don't see her in her world on the screen. So it doesn't really make sense that in the end of the movie we would have this take inside of her head. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the ending that everybody is going for doesn't take into account that final scene, or it gives it a very unusual meaning that doesn't line up with the rest of the movie. So if we want to take that scene and give it a more logical place in this movie, then it would mean that, well, obviously either it's a childhood memory, well, it's not a childhood memory, we know that, or it's reality. If it's reality, it means that he's still in the country. It means he knows the dog, so the whole meet cute was a setup. And if she knows, if the movie is a representation of the way she experiences the world, or it's a take on her life, and we see him, then it also means that they are still seeing each other. Because otherwise he wouldn't be in the movie. Because it's a movie about her, not about him. So it really turns the story, if we take it as a reality, it turns the story upside down, because then it means that he already knew the dog. So he set up their meet cute. He is still in that hotel room, very unlikely meeting other women, because then it would mean that we have a scene that is just about his life when she's no longer in it. So that doesn't really make sense. So then we have to assume that if it's in the movie and if it's reality, then it means that he's still there, they're still visiting the room, and that the dog was his all along. That's when we interpret it as reality. However, if we would go for, no, it's her fantasy. She has created an image in her head of the dog, of him, and of the hotel room. She's kind of like put it together, and that's what we see in them. Then we're at the groundbreaking idea of that everything we've been seeing is her fantasy, is her imagination, that he was never real. Now, in order for this to work, or to kind of like have a sense of how that works, you would have to be familiar with the movie Fight Club, because the movie Fight Club is basically just that. It is about someone who really needs to change his life, and he imagines meeting someone else through which his life gets changed, and he turns into a completely different person who suddenly has the balls to do everything that he previously didn't dare doing. So in the final scenes of Fight Club, we see this play out. We see this imaginary friend really saying, you created me because you could not change on your own. Sometimes you think you are me, and sometimes you think I'm someone else. So in that movie, you really see, like, when a director makes a movie about a fictional character and a real character, you can see in these last scenes how that would play out. And if you know the movie Fight Club, then you can see, wait a minute, that could have happened here. We could have had a scene where Samuel, the younger lover, confronts her and says, you need to think about who I am, because you created me with your mind. And if you watch the movie again, you can see that there are certain things that the character of Samuel does that are a direct reflection of what she sees in her her own life. For example, Samuel shows up wearing a hoodie in the hotel room, and her daughter also wears this kind of like hoodie. He leaves her a note. She always leaves notes for her daughter. I think there was other things as well. He says something about this. This was not what I was going to say. Maybe I will remember the other things, but I do know that he at some point says something about the therapy. Can you do your therapy on me? And that was also kind of like, it was weird. It was a weird moment in the movie. So I will put in the link below to an article about that I wrote about this ending. And there is, in the article, there's a part where it says, okay, this is written in the day after. And it is in that part that I kind of like collect a few of these examples where Samuel behaves in a way that seems to be directly related to her surroundings. So they're not his. Another part is, another way to see it is, so there's two ways you can see this. You can see it as she has created this whole new persona or imaginary friend, or you can even, and that's like, then it would be like a direct sister from Fight Club, this movie. Or you can say, which is even more interesting, oh, I really wish that Halina Rhine would make us a director's cut with this in it. I mean, that would be great. Is that there's two Samuels. One is the real one, who kind of like has this insecure way of behaving around her. And one is her imaginary Samuel that has this that she meets in the soundproof room, that is in the elevator with her, that is in the hotel room with her, and that these two characters come closer and closer, so that by the end, the real Samuel has moved closer towards her, like maybe the final scene where her husband and Samuel confront. Maybe that is the real Samuel. Maybe by that time, the real Samuel has got a place in her life. So that's also very interesting, because if she has imagined this whole, let's say, sexy Samuel, if she has imagined that affair, then it would explain why he is so defensive on many occasions, where he's like, what are you, like, you're behaving weirdly. Well, if she made him up, and there's two Samuels, there's the real one and there's the one she made up, then this totally makes sense. So I have no idea if she Halina Reijn deliberately put this layer into the movie. I have no idea. I don't think it really matters, but it is my bet that 20 years from now, that is how the movie will be seen. It will be like, oh yeah, that's a cult movie where there's a woman and she wants to be free, and she makes up this whole like fictional lover who frees her, or who gives her what she wants. And I think that is going to be the analysis of this movie. And if you start looking for ending explained videos from Fight Club, then you'll also have people kind of like going even deeper into the fictional friend thing of Fight Club, so deeper than was explained on screen, and say that the woman who plays in this movie Fight Club, which is Marla Singer, the character of Marla Singer, that she's actually also fictional. So so you can see how, when at the time in 1999, and the movie itself doesn't speak about Marla Singer being fictional. So it's a meaning that has been attributed like 15, 20 years after the movie was made, where someone said, wait a minute, the Marla Singer character, she's fictional as well. So so it's not that uncommon for movies to be interpreted differently after it was made, and even differently from what the creators wanted to create at that moment. And I think that that is really a hallmark of when something is art. When something is art, it is when there are multiple takes on something, when there is a layeredness to it that cannot even be understood by the creators themselves. So it's yeah, it is what makes art different from just being yeah, just being something that is copied or uh, um, yeah, very much standardized. It is that there comes it's like the genie. It is the muse. It is spirit. It is um, art itself that I would say starts messing with things, but that inspires things, that brings spirit to what it is you're creating. So, as a creator, yes, there are a lot of aspects to your work that you deliberately put in there. But any creator will tell you that there's at least as much that ends up in your work that you never deliberately put there, but that just comes through you. And I think there's really two possibilities. Either Halina Rhine said, listen guys, we're going to put an extra layer in this movie, but I need you to not say anything to anybody about this because the time is not right for this. So if we would go for the final scene that it's reality and that he is still in the hotel room and that they're still seeing each other, the time is not right for that. So, you know, that is kind of like putting an extra layer in it. But if it's the imaginary friend or imaginary lover trope, like Halina Reijn would understand that this is not the time where we want movies out where women who have lovers are delusional. You know, that's not the message that we want to endorse. So I think that there's a possibility that she did put in this final scene, which is not congruent with the ending that is given to the movie by everybody, including herself and the cast. So either she put this final scene in it and deliberately didn't say anything to anybody and said to everybody, listen, we're not going to say anything about this. Or it really was art itself, that the cast and crew just worked really hard on the script and on the movie and made this film for this broad audience and a super successful film. They made it with all their heart and all their effort. And it was art itself that thought, wait a minute. Let me when you're not watching, let me just do something here and really elevate it, really kind of like give it this extra meaning, give it this extra layer. So that was my one-off review, movie review, and I'll be back with life lessons in Bon Jovi songs because that's what I do here on this channel. So see you there. Bye.